Hi, Jesse. I hope you're well.
Hi, how are you, Neil?
Good, thank you. I'd like to ask you about Jaden Hibbert, the goalkeeper you've called in. My understanding is that his international options will still be open after this friendly window. What can you tell us about him? And has he committed to Canada, or is he just checking out the options?
Well, yes, you're right. The reality is that there's not anything we can do in this window to tie him down to being part of Canada. And he would, even if we could, he would still, to a certain point, be able to have a one-time switch, right? But the discussions with him from the beginning are that he's very interested and most interested in representing Canada. I know he's felt pressure from Jamaica, and that Steve McLaren has actually personally reached out to him and tried to convince him to stay with Jamaica. But Jaden has made it clear that this is something that he really wants to pursue and something he feels very strongly about. And so, in all these situations, when you talk to dual nationals, I think it's really important that they feel the tie to being Canadian. People have sometimes given me credit for finding dual nationals, but it's turned out more that the dual nationals have found me and have shown real interest in representing Canada. So those for me are the exact kind of guys that we want. And then, just talking about Jaden's talent potential is something that I think is very unique and big. And if you watched him play over the weekend, I think you would have seen all of his abilities and potential. So for us, I think this is really exciting. We know we have two great goalkeepers in Dane and Max, but obviously for the future, I think that Jaden can be somebody that we can be thinking very seriously about and can be a long-standing Canadian national team goalkeeper.
Thank you.
We got a lot of raised hands, so if we could just keep it to one question, that'd be great. We'll go to Christian Jack. Christian?
Thanks, John. I'll try and put it into one question for you.
Okay.
Jesse, just comments on, you spoke to me last week about the squad being broadened now and having more players that you can rely on. So maybe just a question is on how much easier maybe it was to put this squad together. And then I'd also like a comment on Jonathan Osorio as well, and the omission of Oso. I don't think he's missed a squad since 2016 other than injury. So if you can just clarify that, please.
Yeah, so Christian, that's two questions. John, I mean, you might need to clamp down on that. First part, yes, the squad is becoming clearer and clearer. But like we have Jaden in this time, we have Jaquille in this time. So I think there's still some new faces in that way, for at least in my time. And also, I left him a message, and Oso for me has been playing really well, and it hasn't been easy to leave him out of the squad. We've tilted a little bit more by not bringing Kamal and Oso specifically, by thinking that it's a European group, they're European fixtures, and to tilt a little bit more toward the European player pool, which gave us, I think, an opportunity to include Junior, who's someone that we still value, someone who I think is still playing at a very high level, and someone who I think we really need to think carefully about what he means now and what he could mean next summer, to both what he brings on the pitch and then the kind of leader and kind of person he is within the team. So it's just the circumstances, I think, right now for where Oso's at, but he's still very much in the big picture for next summer.
Thank you.
John Molinaro?
Thanks, John. Hi, Jesse. Thanks as always for doing this. Good of you.
Yeah.
Just want to get your rationale behind bringing in Jaquille Marshall-Ruddy.
Well, we have issues on our back line, right, with injuries, and so when you're always, I think, as a national team staff, evaluating what are the potentials of players, what are their form and fitness, who looks like they can start to maybe push themselves into the picture a little bit more. And Jaquille, I think, has made a great case for himself down in Charlotte. They're in a really good way, winning a lot of matches lately. I think Jaquille's played on the left, he's played on the right, so he's shown some flexibility. He's been, I think, very confident. He's playing more aggressively. He's doing a lot of things that fit with the way we want to play. But I think when he comes to camp, we need to push him. We need to challenge him to meet the standard that we think exists within our national team, and then we'll see how he responds. And these injuries are opportunities for others. So we know that guys like Alistair and Moyes and obviously Alfonso are big players in the big picture of what we do, but it's also a benefit and an opportunity in a situation like this to look at a few more guys and to think about the possibilities of how they could fit in for the future.
Thanks, Jesse. Hope you and your family are well.
Thanks, bud.
Matthew Schneidy.
Good to see you, Jesse. Just on Jefferson. Obviously, we saw the media stuff around him and his injury. Was there any pushback from Preston about including him in the squad, or what was the situation with him not coming?
I would say Preston was a little bit careful about how to describe his return to play. And in fact, I was a little bit surprised that he was in the squad on the weekend based on what our dialogue between our medical teams was. And then the fact that he played. I thought he came off the bench and looked pretty good. The situation right now is Kyle Larin is expecting a baby on September 5th in Toronto with his family and his wife, right? So we wanted to include Kyle, and obviously Kyle's also in a point where he's trying to figure out what his club future looks like. Because Kyle's an important person in the project and in the team, but we know that we may have to drop Kyle either before the camp starts or at some point during the camp because we're evaluating where he's at with his wife and them having their third baby. So that, and I've already communicated to Jebo that means that he has to be ready, and there's potential that if Kyle has to leave at any point that we're ready to move forward with him.
Any pushback from Preston on that? I know that's the second question, but just because it's a quick follow-up.
We haven't communicated that with Preston yet, just because we left him out of the squad, but now it'll become, with this press conference, I think it'll become open, but we will do that eventually. Right now we just wanted to focus on which guys we were naming in the team.
Okay. Thanks, Jesse.
Yep.
JF.
Hi, Jesse. Thank you for your time.
What's up, Jeff?
Hi, I'm good. Now with Joel Waterman being traded to Chicago and Nathan Salibas transferred to Anderlecht, this means that it's the first time since 2009, I think, that there's no Montreal-based player called up to the Canadian squad. Do you think it's more of a symptom of the season the club has had here in Montreal, or the success the club has had sending its Canadian players out elsewhere? What do you make of this situation?
Yeah, well, there was a time period where it was Sam and Mathieu, and then Nathan was part of it, and Joel. Luca Petrasso is also one that we've been following, and this was a big part of the discussion of maybe involving him at this time, but we felt that Jaquille, given his performances, was a little bit ahead of Luca, so we made that decision. I didn't know the statistic about Montreal. I think that Montreal has been a mainstay for the Canadian national team for many years. And obviously my relationship with Joey and Gabe and everyone that's doing good work there in Montreal, I guess I'm saddened that we don't have someone from Montreal, but at the same time, I think we tried to pick the players that we thought were going to be best for this scenario. So, we still watch. I watch Montreal. I watch all the Canadian teams very closely, but certainly Montreal with my past, and I'm always rooting for them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Andy Prillo.
Thank you. Hey, Jesse. Sorry, I can't figure out how to turn my video on. You'd think I'd get used to this by now. So a question just when it goes back to the goalkeepers. I'm wondering, I would think that you'd probably have about 10 games before the World Cup starts. And I'm wondering if there's a marker that you have where you're like, this is when I need to decide who my number one is, or are you good just riding it up until the last minute?
That's a good question. We've had that discussion in the staff, and I've even discussed that with some of the players. Like, just hearing the leaders in the team where they think things are at. I think, look, when you talk to the players or the staff about our two goalkeepers, everyone has such a high level of respect for both of them. But I think everyone does see the need for there to be a decision made so that that particular goalkeeper can have a run of games where they feel like they're firmly fixed into the role. So I don't have an answer right now, Andy, but I am aware of the fact that we need to make that decision at some point here to give both goalkeepers clarity, I think. It's just difficult because when you're evaluating week in and week out, it's so close, right? And obviously then Max goes through a little bit of a time period where now he doesn't play the last game, and then James gets a clean sheet. But for sure, Max needs to stay strong and know how important he is to our national team. And as much as maybe he's not in that role as the starter right now, I don't care. Like, if he comes in and performs well and is mentally clear and ready to compete for that position, then I want to give him every opportunity to be successful and show what he's about.
I have a question on the 6 players, I think it is, that are coming into your camp from different clubs after that big transfer window summer. I know you did a bit of a media car wash on all those transfers, but does it change the dynamic having players come in from different teams now?
Well, I think and look, I think there's a high possibility by the time we see each other that there could be 3, 4, 5 more transfers. So look, I'm having discussions every day with agents, with clubs, with coaches, trying to support our guys, trying to help with my connections, give the kind of feedback to clubs and to players about potential of what a new club could be like, could feel like, could mean for their future, and certainly for next summer. I appreciate that between the agencies and the players and the clubs, that there's a lot of respectful discourse on what we think of different situations and how to find the best for all our players. And in the end, I just want to support them. I care about these guys. I want to see them be successful. It's not just about, can we create a winning team for next summer? It's about really supporting these young men to be in the best environments that they can so they can do the best for themselves and their families. So I've enjoyed that work. It's been busy. The last 4 weeks for me have been, maybe I should become an agent instead of a football coach. But really, again, it's something I care about, and I want to see these guys be put in situations to succeed.
AGR?
Hey, Jesse. Hope all is well.
Hey.
Fitting, I'm hopping in after Ben because I kind of want to build off that. Like, obviously, there's always a bit of a World Cup effect with transfers and, how that can accelerate moves. But it feels like we've kind of seen it moved up a year early. We've seen that with some of the rumors around a guy like Tanny potentially going to Spain. How have you kind of felt that as a coach, that what you guys have been doing over the last 16 months, how that's kind of pushed, these guys, all of a sudden they're attracting interest from higher and higher levels, and what that just kind of means for the competition? Because now there's this pressure to make the right move, whereas before it was just make any move.
Yeah. Well, look, I would say I don't want to take too much credit. Like, the guys have really, in club and country, have all really performed at a high level. But, if I go back to like the first discussion that I had with the team, it was, we need to create higher standards. We need to create higher demands. We need to understand what the game looks like at the highest level and emulate that and put that to practice with everything we do with the national team, but also then how that applies to your form and fitness with what you're doing for your club teams. And to a man, I think the guys have understood the reasons and the strategies behind what we're trying to do here, and they've tried to put it to practice in the best way they can possible. And frankly, as fans of theirs and supporters of theirs, it's been really fun to watch week in and week out the performances, the progression, the development, and the opportunities grow for our players. Even for a guy like Junior Hoylett to be competing to play in Europe for the first time ever in his career, like, that's incredible to see. And I'm rooting him on like crazy because I want him to have that experience. So, I'm really proud of our team and our guys. And again, I want to really try to support them as much as I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Antonin?
Bonjour, Jesse.
Bonjour.
I'm sorry you might have talked about this in the past few weeks, but I'd like to have your opinion on Mathieu Choignard coming back to MLS with LA, and also about Nathan Saliba debut with Anderlecht.
Yeah. Well, first, Mathieu, I was really hopeful that Grasshopper was going to be a great move for him, and I thought, and I really think the Swiss League is a launching league for players in Europe, or launching league for players in Europe. It didn't quite work out, and partly because they changed managers and things became a little bit unstable. So I actually think going to LAFC, where I know John Thorrington, who he and I have had multiple conversations about, even when they took him to Grasshopper, and now I'm coming to LFC. And then Steve Trundolo, the coach there, who I consider a close friend and somebody who I really respect. And then a team that I think has big ambitions in MLS. So in many ways, I think that this move, even though it's not rooted in the development and opportunity of what can happen in Europe, is a really good move for him right now. And I think it can help him establish himself and get into really good form and fitness over the next year.
Just about Nathan.
Sorry, Nathan.
No,
Nathan, look, I mean, it's great. It's perfect. Honestly, like, to go to Belgium, to go to a club like Anderlecht, a storied club. I'm familiar with that club because of Sasha Kleshin and the time that he went there. At one point, Anderlecht played with Kamar Lawrence, Matt Miazga, and Amir Murillo in the back line, which were three of my ex-players. So obviously I followed Anderlecht closely, and I think that it's a perfect landing spot for him. And in preseason, he's played outstanding. And then in the league matches he's played, he's also been outstanding. So really excited to see Nathan continue to develop.
Joe.
Hey, Jesse, great to see you. I know Bucharest is first up, but I did want to ask about going to Swansea. The locals would remind us that Welsh football is not English football, but it is part of that pyramid. And for you, just two aspects of going back into the belly of the beast of British football. I just have you thought about it, given how things ended for you at Leeds? But secondly, kind of, as the lads were alluding to, we've had two great summer transfer windows in a row for Canadian players, but we're still no closer to having a Canadian as a regular or starter in what's seen as the biggest or best league in the world. I wonder, do you think some of the attitudes you faced in British football as a North American are maybe extended to your players still?
Okay. I haven't thought I've been more focused just on playing Wales. I had a staff member, Cameron Toshak, who is from Swansea, and obviously his dad is a very famous coach, successful coach. But I'm excited for the challenge of going to Wales and playing against a really good team. The part about players of ours playing in the Premier League, obviously, I think it is a goal for a lot of our high-level players to play at the highest level. I think in some ways, Alfonso could add opportunities. I think Jonathan could add opportunities. And they chose to stay at Bayern and then go to Juventus, which I also think are great moves for their careers. There may be some bias, and you could discuss whether I faced some of that or not at Leeds.
You could.
By the way, I'm happy that Leeds United is back in the Premier League, and obviously I'm rooting for them. And tough match against Arsenal, but I still think they have a really good team and are going to have a good season and stay up. But regardless, most of our guys, I think, are really conscious about making calculated decisions on what's best for their career. So you mentioned someone mentioned a little bit before about just getting to Europe. And now you see a lot more of our guys thinking about, well, look, this club is like that. This club is like this. The idea of where I want to go and how I want to get there, and the style of football of the coach and the style of football in the league and what the club represents. Maybe this fits me a little bit better than that, right? And I think that I love to see that our guys are intelligent enough and worldly enough on how the game works to think very carefully about the decisions for what's best for them in their careers. And it's usually not about the finances, and it's usually not about the fame or the idea of what the biggest clubs could be like. And it's more about, how do I create a career path for myself to give myself the best chance to achieve my potential and be the best I can be, which I think is absolutely the right strategy. I mean, even whether it's, Nico, talking to Derek, talking to Johnny, talking to all these guys, like, they're very careful thinkers about what's best for them.
Right. Yeah. Cheers.
Oliver.
Hey Jesse, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the matches themselves. Obviously, you've got some really good tests coming up this window and beyond. When you look back at the summer and at March as well, what have you kind of evaluated and identified as the steps you'd like to see the team take, or the steps they need to take going forwards in the coming windows here?
Yeah, I would say, sorry, hang on one second. Okay. We've tried to create a schedule, a match schedule that will challenge us in every way and represent world football in a way that could match what we see in our draw. In general, I think, it's like getting these two opponents, they're in groups that are odd numbered. So while they're playing qualifiers, they had sort of this open match day, and then we were able to then attack the odd numbered groups instead of the even numbered groups to find the opponents that we wanted to find for this window, because we knew that a lot of our players might be making transfers in and around Europe or to Europe. So it made sense to have a September window where we played in Europe, where the travel wasn't as big a factor, thus giving them the chance to commit to the national team and continue their overall progress and development of what they're doing with their teams, and often new teams. So I think that strategy is the right strategy for this moment. These two opponents, I think, are very strong, will present very unique challenges to us, but ones where we feel like we should be able to be successful. And, we've tried to, as much as the Gold Cup, we fell short in some areas, and I've tried to talk very openly about how disappointed we were to lose in the quarterfinals. We achieved goals on broadening our player pool and thus giving more players opportunities in their club lives. And I think that in the moment, even thinking about winning on European soil, which is something that we haven't done since 2011, is another kind of feather in the cap that we want to put in our overall journey to prepare ourselves for the World Cup next summer. So certainly we know that Romania and Wales are very good teams that are fighting right now with everything to get to the World Cup, but we are treating these matches like real preparation. And by the way, we've done a lot of rotation. We've done a lot of looking at different players. And I think it's going to be more time to focus on which players need to play to give them the best opportunity to be successful for next summer. So there's that part of the focus. And then the other big part is, I think, the vocal leadership within our group. We have a lot of really good, talented, established players in the national team now, but we need more big leaders that understand what the best games are about and how to manage moments and how to make sure that next summer we know as a group on the pitch how to handle things. So those are, I think, the areas of focus moving forward here in this window.
Thank you very much.
Go to Michael McCall.
Morning, Jesse, or I guess afternoon to you. Just kind of following on from that, what do you feel the team needs to do in the coming months to take it to the next level? Obviously, the Gold Cup, you've talked a lot about, it fell short. Where do you need to see these improvements between now and kicking off next June?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's tactical nuances and then there's levels at which we think we can play. But I think the big one is the team personality, right? Like, we have great guys, absolutely flawless character men in this team, but we need established leaders, experienced, established, savvy, vocal leadership, right? And it has to come from within. So this is, for me, the biggest next step in our team is how strong of a mentality, how strong is the communication, how strong is the understanding of how to handle every moment, and especially what that will mean for the World Cup.
Thanks, Jesse.
We'll go to the last of the hands. Simon?
Hi, Jesse. I wanted to ask you about Jamie Knight-LaBelle. He hasn't seen too much action or even been in the 18 with Bristol City so far this season. He was on loan with Crewe last year. Have you spoken to their manager, Gerhard Struber, about his progress and just your thoughts on him what you'd hope to see him do, not just with you guys, but also with Bristol City as well.
Yeah. No, so Gerhard and I have had a couple conversations, and he likes him a lot. I've been actually surprised that he hasn't played very much by the way that we call him Stroobsy, by the way he's been speaking about him. But I also want to see now, it's possible that maybe if this were in North America that we would have leaned more for Kamal. But I want to see, even though Jamie hasn't played minutes in matches, I want to see what he looks like based on now what it's been like with Stroobsy and Bristol City. And that will be part of the evaluation process of where he is on his overall development. So we like Jamie, we like his potential, and we'll see where he's at. We'll see where he's at right now.
Thank you.
We'll do two more. Carlos.
Hi, Jesse. My question for you is, taking in consideration the Club World Cup that we just experienced, we saw Stephen Eustaquio playing in the World Cup. It was just like a few months ago. My question for you is, are you planning to use Stephen as he's been used in Porto, like they put him on the back three? Possibility in the future? No? You don't like him there?
No, and Steph and I have talked about that, and if I told him he would play center back, I think he would say, okay, I'll do it, but he would look at me like, Coach, don't do this to me. So I appreciate, but like we know about Steph, he has taken that role on perfectly, and if the coach wants him to do that, he'll do the best that he can. And he's talked about the fact that it's added to his overall intensity of like sprinting and handling certain defensive moments and communication. And so like we know of Steph, he's used it in every way to make him better, but we'll use him in the midfield. We're not using him in the back.
Okay, last two. Jordan Wilson.
Hi, Jesse. I
Jordan,
just wanted to ask you,
what's up?
How are you? Everything's good?
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask you about Ishmael Kone, particularly just about the qualities that he needs to show or embody to be someone like you rely on and basically be a starter for this the squad.
Yeah, look, Ishmael and I have gotten to know each other really well, and I really like the opportunities that we've had, him and I, like 1v1, where we can sit down and talk about things and talk about his life and talk about his development. And I've made it very clear to him that we all believe in his talent, but we have to refine him as a football player, and the discipline and concentration of what he does on the pitch, along with his ability to move with the ball and be creative and find attacking moments. So I'm definitely not trying to limit his talent and his creativity, but I'm trying to add to it more tactical discipline and understanding of what the best games look like and how he can fit in specifically more defensively. So I think that this move is going to be really good for him. I thought he played well, even though he got the double yellow. And I think he'll be ready to be in good form and push to continue to show all the things we need for him with our national team.
Perfect. Good luck, Jesse.
Yep. Awesome.
Any follow-up?
Jesse, can you give us some final clarity on Owen Goodman? Because it's become obviously a topic of conversation amongst the media and the fans. Like, is there a final word on whether or not he'll ever want to participate in the camp?
He is a PR potential, so permanent resident. But the rules of permanent residency mean that within the last 5 years, you have to have lived in the country for a certain amount of time. He has no lineage or blood or someone that's born in Canada. He only has the opportunity to be Canadian through permanent residency. However, he moved away from Canada longer before than what the requirement would be for him to gather enough days in Canada over the last 5 years to even be discussed or considered as a potential Canadian. So he is trying to look at avenues and with lawyers, and we have discussed this as well internally and with government officials. But where it stands right now, it's not even for discussion because it's so far off. So you could tell people that they can stop discussing it until the future, until we find another loophole or another way to get him here more long term.
Thanks, Jesse. See you in Romania.
I think was that clear? I feel like an immigration.
That was clear. That was clear. That was good.
That was pretty good.
All right, I'm going to call it there. Thank you, everybody. Merci à tous. We'll see you in Romania for some of you.
Okay, let's go.
Bye.
Allez. Merci.